I always vouch for Russ. Always vouch for any time, any chance, that I can team up with Russ after that experience playing with him in Oklahoma.
Russell Westbrook, a former MVP, 9-time All-Star, and one of the most explosive guards in NBA history, is now facing the coldest truth of his career. No team wants him.
I mean, so Russ, here's the thing, it would be hard for any player to go from being the MVP of the NBA to then taking on a role where you're coming off the bench.
Critics say it's the end of the road, but the league isn't as quiet as it looks. NBA players are furious. Paul George, Patrick Beverly, and others have stepped up, defending their brother with raw emotion. It sparked a burning question. Why has the NBA turned its back on one of its living legends?
He just waited. I'm kind of a little bit slower, so he just waited me to get to the spot, and he passed it always on the right time. So he always, I mean, he's a great player. I think people and teams that he was passed misunderstand him and didn't give him the opportunity.
In today's cutthroat basketball world, loyalty barely exists. Teammates become rivals overnight, and friendships crumble under contract deadlines. But when Westbrook, one of the most passionate players to ever touch the court, found himself unsigned at 36, something wild happened. His peers rallied behind him, and not with half-hearted tweets or PR-safe answers. These were full-blown defenses filled with frustration and love. Players who went to war with Westbrook couldn't stay silent anymore. They saw the league treating him like he was washed, and it didn't sit right.
But me and Russ had a good relationship. I looked up to Russ in a lot of ways. When I was young, Oklahoma City was the team I watched, KD and him. So it was dope getting to know Russ, and he's a fierce competitor. You talk about greatness, Russ to this day, he's a little older now. He can still move and stuff, but he's a little older. But every day he's in the gym getting his shots up, doing his thing. The things that came out were normal things that happen within an 82-game season in the NBA. I don't know who leaked some of the stuff in the locker room. I don't know if one of the coaches, but it was a little strange because the things that came out, teammates are gonna not see eye to eye and they're gonna get into it. It was little stuff though.
Yeah.
The respect he built over 2 decades suddenly meant nothing to execs, but it meant everything to those who'd seen his grind up close. And leading that charge, Michael Porter Jr., the former Denver Nuggets star, freshly traded to the Brooklyn Nets, came out swinging on the Respectfully Justin LeBoy show on September 23, 2025. He didn't sugarcoat a thing. Porter painted a raw, emotional picture of Westbrook's fight to transition from a dominant MVP to a role player still hungry to win. You could hear the anger in his voice. Porter directly called out Lakers and Clippers fans for how they disrespected Russ during his LA run. And he didn't stop there. He went after the long-standing narrative that Westbrook was bad for locker rooms, exposing it as the lazy excuse people used to tear him down. The frustration was real, and the message was clear. Russell Westbrook deserves better. The heat around Russell Westbrook had been nonstop. Every team he joined came with whispers, side eyes, and endless gossip. But Michael Porter Jr. wasn't having it.
About Russ? No, not about criticism. I mean, people going to always criticize when you're successful and you're doing your thing for this long. Somebody gonna always find something that they don't like. So when he's retired, people gonna really tell the truth about how they feel about his game. Right now, it's a fun thing to do is to make a joke out of Russ, but he the way he's been playing is since he got with the Clippers, showed everybody who he really is.
I like the only people to do that too is the people who don't know basketball.
Fact.
You know what I'm saying? And don't know what it's like to compete. I know for me, Russ is one of my closest friends. You know what I'm saying? And so people that do that and talk crazy probably wish they could be in that situation. You know what I mean?
He straight up shut that noise down, saying loud and clear, "That's cap." Porter clapped back at the idea that Westbrook was some kind of locker room problem, saying he bought into the system. He was cheering people on. He used his platform to crush the fake stories that had followed Russ through his later career. You could feel the respect in Porter's tone. It wasn't just talk, it was personal. At only 27, Porter had seen Westbrook up close during the 2024-25 season. He'd watched how the vet practiced, how he showed up early, how he kept his teammates motivated even when things got rough. That's what hit people hardest. Porter's defense came from experience, not headlines. And Porter wasn't the only one standing tall for Russ. Patrick Beverly, the same guy who once had beef with Westbrook, jumped on the Pat Bev pod and went off on August 28, 2025. He said, "It's shocking, man. Westbrook's still stretching with the team every day, every single day. We're talking about a man who's elite. He shot 40% from 3 in Denver. He won playoff games. I don't know what's taking so long. I know the Kings want him. They even thinking about moving Malik Monk to make room.
Westbrook is the least guarded guard in the NBA. That teams essentially don't guard him and beg him to shoot. He is also simultaneously shooting 15.5% from the field in the last 2 games, the worst mark over 2 games of any Laker ever. Magic Johnson said this on a recent interview with Shannon Sharp of FS1. Magic said, you got to own your stuff. You can't keep blaming the media and the fans. I don't think it's in him. I don't think it's within Russell Westbrook's personality. Is that what made him a Hall of Fame level player is now a hindrance, is that he is so singular-minded that, and his belief in himself is so strong, he can't acknowledge weakness.
Then Bev dropped the mic with, it's a little disrespectful that Russ hasn't been signed yet, if I'm honest. That line hit different coming from him. Because let's not forget, back in 2013, Beverly was the guy who injured Russ during a heated playoff series, tearing his meniscus and costing him major time. The two had real history, even tension. But by 2023, when they became Lakers teammates, the script flipped completely. They turned that rivalry into respect, even friendship, after realizing they were fighting the same battles: harsh critics, bad media, and the pressure cooker that is the NBA grind. Bev wasn't done either. He took aim at the locker room cancer narrative that people love to push about Russ, saying, when I was with the Lakers, I was like, Russell Westbrook a cancer? Nah, that's cap. He was the hardest worker, always brought the energy when we needed it. Coming from a guy who had nothing to gain from defending him, that carried real weight.
I mean, so Russ, here's the thing, it would be hard for any player to go from being the MVP of the NBA to then taking on a role where you're coming off the bench, but you still have, like I said, even me, going from being the best player to then having some injuries and having to accept, I need to figure out a role. That's tough. So for Russ, to go from MVP to then be told he's going to play this type of role and to then, go to these different teams and get disrespected by so many people. When he went to LA, he was disrespected crazy.
Yeah, that was crazy.
When he went to the Clippers, people hated on him crazy. Meanwhile, he's been the MVP of the NBA. So I feel like all those things weighed on Russ.
Then came Paul George, another big name from Russ's past. On his Podcast P with Paul George episode on August 15th, 2025, PG sounded stunned. Man, Russ unsigned? That's wild. After what he did in Denver, coming off the bench, sparking that playoff run to the semis, teams sleeping on a dude still playing like it's 2017. George reminded everyone what Russ brought behind the scenes too, saying, when Kawhi and I were banged up in LA, his leadership kept us locked in. And if there's one guy who knows both sides of the Westbrook experience, the glory and the grind, it's Paul George. His words made it clear the league might have turned its back, but the players still know who Russ really is. Paul George took it even further, opening up about his Oklahoma City days with Russ. He said, we wanted him back, no cap. He's just so valuable, not just the points or dimes, but that fire he brings. He teaches young guys how to compete. If Philly had space, I'd vouch for him tomorrow. That kind of love doesn't come easy in the league. And that's what made these defenses hit so hard. These weren't some polite PR lines given while Russ was shining. These were raw, unfiltered words said when he was down, ignored, and counted out.
Always vouch for Russ. Always vouch for any time, any chance, that I can team up with Russ after that experience playing with him in Oklahoma. I'm going to be the first to voice, because it goes, people don't understand, it goes deeper than the on-the-court shit. What he bring off the court to a locker room, to an organization, is shit that you, it's one of one. You know what I mean? He's passion, he's, talk about somebody that's just all in and all about the team.
Porter, Beverly, and George weren't chasing clout. They were calling the league out, saying loud and clear, you got this man twisted. You're sleeping on greatness, and they weren't the only ones. Kevin Durant and Chris Paul both came forward to back their former rival and teammate. When asked about the constant criticism Russ gets, Durant didn't hesitate. He defended him, pointing out how misunderstood Westbrook's energy really is. Chris Paul chimed in too, adding that people forget how much of Westbrook's passion and leadership keeps a team alive when things get rough. Then came Raymond Felton, another ex-teammate who'd gone to battle with Russ in OKC. He didn't hold back either, The man's been hated on his whole career. How can you disrespect his loyalty like that? Felton reminded everyone of that defining moment in 2016 when Kevin Durant left Oklahoma City and Russ stayed. He didn't run. He chose loyalty over convenience, something rare in today's NBA. Even Nikola Jokic, the three-time MVP himself, had Russ's back. After a rough game where Westbrook made some late mistakes, Jokic stepped up in the post-game interview, saying simply, "It happens. Everybody makes mistakes." He had already praised Westbrook before for his effort, work ethic, and fire, proving that respect for Russ ran deep, even from the league's top superstar. And it didn't stop there. Austin Reeves, Bradley Beal, Aaron Gordon, and Jamal Murray all showed love for Westbrook at different times. They highlighted his leadership, his energy, and his drive. The kind of impact that doesn't show up on a stat sheet but keeps a locker room together through the grind of an 82-game season. The gap between what players said and what fans believed was wild. Those who actually shared a locker room with Russ spoke highly of him, describing a teammate who worked harder than anyone and cared deeply about winning. But the outside world, analysts and online critics painted him as washed, inefficient, or stubborn. They obsessed over shooting percentages and turnovers while ignoring everything else he brought to the table. It left one huge question hanging. Who do you believe? The teammates who went to war with him every night, or the outsiders judging from highlight clips and box scores? Then came the gut punch. Fast forward to September 30th, 2025. NBA training camps were in full swing. Media days done. Rosters locked in. Every team was gearing up for the season. Yet one name, one legendary name, was missing from every roster sheet. A 9-time All-Star, a former MVP, the all-time leader in triple-doubles, with over 200 of them still unsigned. Russell Westbrook, at 36, was officially teamless. For the first time in his 17-year career, he was watching the season tip off without a jersey on his back. It wasn't supposed to end like this. Just months before, he'd completed a redemption run with the Denver Nuggets, coming off the bench, playing his role, and earning respect all over again. But now, silence. No calls, no contracts, just a Hall of Famer sitting at home, waiting for the league he gave everything to remember who he really is. For the first time in a while, Russell Westbrook looked reborn. He averaged 13.3 points, 6.1 assists, 4.9 rebounds, and 1.4 steals across 75 games, all while shooting an efficient 44.9% from the field and bumping his three-point percentage up to 32.3%. That's wild for someone people said was finished. He clicked perfectly with Nikola Jokic, bringing instant energy off the bench and fueling Denver's run to the Western Conference semifinals. His comeback was so strong, he even finished 7th in 6th Man of the Year voting, an unbelievable turnaround for a player written off just a year earlier. But then came June 29th, 2025, the day Russ made a move that changed everything. He declined his $3.4 million player option with the Nuggets, betting on himself. He wanted a bigger role, a better contract, and one last shot to remind the world who he was. It made sense. He'd just proved he could still hoop with the best. He had playoff experience, leadership, that unmatched motor. Surely the phone would ring, right? Wrong. As free agency opened, closed, and summer turned into fall, that phone stayed silent. Training camp started, rosters filled up, and Russell Westbrook, one of the most electrifying players ever, was left in limbo. It felt surreal. This wasn't just any player, this was Russell freaking Westbrook, a cultural icon, a fashion trendsetter, a walking triple-double, the man who broke Oscar Robertson's record, not once, but multiple seasons in a row. He changed how we saw point guards forever, and now he couldn't even get a roster invite? Madness. This was the same guy who stayed loyal to Oklahoma City when Kevin Durant dipped in 2016. The same guy who dragged a rebuilding Thunder squad to the playoffs on pure fire and willpower. He's a future Hall of Famer, part of the NBA's 75th anniversary team, a man who's given everything to basketball for nearly 2 decades. And now, the league was just moving on without him? That's cold. Then came Media Day, September 29th, 2025, and the silence was deafening. Every team had their shiny photo ops, championship talk, and new uniforms. But one legend was missing. Westbrook wasn't there. No cameras, no sound bites, no team backdrop, just absence. And that absence was loud. Social media went into meltdown. Fans flooded timelines with disbelief. Russell Westbrook is really teamless on Media Day? Unreal, bruh. Another wrote, I'd be shocked if Russ doesn't play this season. If he doesn't, man, that's just sad. One fan pleaded, "Can someone sign him already?" And then came the comment that hit hardest. "Damn, it didn't even hit me. Free agents don't get media day. Probably feels crazy for Russ." That one line said it all. Imagine watching your entire profession move forward without you, seeing teammates, rivals, and friends take the spotlight while you're sitting at home, forgotten. The emotional weight of that? Unbearable. The question echoing everywhere was simple but heartbreaking. How did we get here? How did a player with Russ's resume, the MVPs, the records, the relentless drive, end up on the outside looking in? The truth runs deeper than just one man's story. It's about the new NBA, where analytics rule and loyalty doesn't pay the bills anymore. At 36, soon to be 37, Westbrook represents a dying breed, the high-usage, fearless point guard who attacks the rim like a freight train. But in today's game, that style clashes with the league's obsession over three-point efficiency and ball movement. His career 30.5% from deep makes GMs nervous in an era where spacing is everything. Teams don't just want energy anymore. They want shooters, system players, and salary flexibility. And that brings us to the cold business side. Under the NBA's new collective bargaining agreement, teams now have strict spending limits, those dreaded first and second aprons. Front offices are terrified of overspending, even on legends, if they can't bring guaranteed value at a specific price. So when a veteran like Westbrook, with a huge legacy and personality, hits the market, executives start seeing risk instead of reward. Russell Westbrook was reportedly aiming for a deal worth between $5 to $7 million a year, just a little above the veteran's minimum of roughly $3.3 million. But NBA teams weren't biting. They looked at his age, the injuries, including the hand surgery he had in May 2025, and his fading explosiveness, and they decided the risk didn't match the reward. Brutal. The market's message couldn't have been clearer, and it stung. The league was basically telling Russ, "You're not that guy anymore." His value had plummeted, at least in the eyes of executives. Sure, there were whispers of interest from multiple teams, but nothing solid ever came through. The Sacramento Kings were seen as his best shot, but even that turned messy. They couldn't clear space by moving Malik Monk or Devin Carter. Deals stalled and the window kept closing. So naturally, the question burned, why didn't Denver just bring him back? Why didn't other contenders jump at a veteran with his fire, even on a minimum contract? The answer revealed the cold truth about today's NBA. This league doesn't wait for anybody. It doesn't care about loyalty, legacy, or heart. It's all about numbers, fit, and financial efficiency now. This wasn't just about basketball systems or cap math. It was about how the NBA has evolved and how legends like Westbrook are suddenly seen as inconvenient. For all his accolades, passion, and leadership, he'd somehow ended up on the wrong side of the league's priorities. The gap between how players saw him and how front offices valued him was massive. His teammates knew the real Russ, the grinder, the motivator, the ultimate competitor. But the execs, they saw stats, age, and cap space. That disconnect left one of the game's fiercest warriors watching from the sidelines while the season clock ticked closer. And that's the harsh reality. As much as players defended him, it didn't change the facts. Westbrook was still unsigned. Each passing day made it harder to imagine him suiting up when the 2025-26 season tipped off. The conversation shifted from will Russ find a team to why can't he? The truth isn't easy to face, but it's real. At 36, Russ just isn't the same wrecking ball who won MVP back in 2017. The speed that once terrified defenders has slowed. That trademark first step, gone. His power drives to the rim don't hit the same way. And that's not hate. It's time catching up, like it always does. His hand surgery in May only made teams more cautious. Durability became a red flag. His minutes told the story. From 34.3 per game with the Clippers down to 27.9 with Denver, and then just 18.2 during the playoffs. Teams noticed that trend, and while his shooting had improved slightly to 32.3% from deep, his best since his MVP season, the league average still sits around 36 to 37%. In today's game, where spacing is king, that's a problem. Front offices doubted whether his bump in accuracy was sustainable or just a one-year spike. Then came the money crunch. The NBA's new collective bargaining agreement, with its brutal first and second apron rules, basically trapped teams over the cap. The Houston Rockets, for example, were only $1.25 million over the first apron, but that tiny margin stopped them from adding anyone. even with Fred VanVleet out for the season with an ACL tear. The Kings, meanwhile, couldn't open a spot without trading Monk or Carter, deals that never got done. But the hardest part? The optics. The Lakers didn't bring him back, the Clippers didn't either. And then Denver, the team where he'd actually worked, passed too. That sent a message loud and clear across the league. If 3 straight teams, including one that benefited from his energy, didn't re-sign him, execs were going to assume something was off. Reports about locker room tension resurfaced, even though players like Michael Porter Jr. called that total cap. But perception in the NBA spreads fast, and once it sticks, it's tough to shake. Now, as October rolls in and the regular season inches closer, the future of Russell Westbrook hangs in the air like a question no one wants to answer. Will the Kings finally make room? Will another contender take a flyer? Could he accept a training camp invite, or even, for the first time ever, think about playing overseas? Or maybe, just maybe, he decides to walk away on his own terms, head held high, knowing he gave everything to the game. Whatever happens next, one thing's for sure. This chapter of Russ's story isn't just about basketball. It's about how the NBA treats its icons once the spotlight dims. And that's what makes it sting so much, because if Russell Westbrook can be left behind, nobody's safe.